All right, go ahead.
Okay, well, welcome everyone to the presentation this afternoon. Thank you for taking the time to join us. My name is Eric Senft. I'm here with Rich Freezin and Mike Filigera. Richard is going to be talking this afternoon about persistent trading mistakes. Now, for those of you who are not as familiar with Rich's work, Rich has been a trader in the pits of the CBOT, the CME, and the Pacific Exchange for about 20 years. When he started his own firm, he hired traders to trade his own money, which is reminiscent of Richard Dennis and the famed turtle traders. And of course, that's Rich really putting his money where his mouth is. Rich and his traders made Trade Management LLC one of the few consistently profitable firms on the Pacific Exchange options floor because Rich trained out of his traders their losing behaviors and replaced those with winning ones. Rich has actually developed a system to help traders do exactly what he trained his traders to do. He calls it building a trader's brain. And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's presentation. There's nothing like the trading psychology theory you've probably heard before. Rich's stuff is quite unique. He has a degree in neuroscience as well as a master's in clinical psychology and a master's in training and neuro-linguistic programming. I have no idea really what that means, but I can tell you when Rich talks, I listen.
Well, it's the master's is in just master's training in neuro-linguistic program, so not in neuroscience itself, just to make sure we're not exaggerating the letters behind my name.
Okay. I do know from working with Rich in the past through Indicator Warehouse and through his Mind Muscles program that the training is actually very unique and very interesting. I've learned a lot from working with Rich. And okay, so Rich, the big question now, how are you going to fix all our trading mistakes that we have a tendency to do?
In the next 75 minutes or so.
That's right, no pressure. Oh, well, just a little bit of housekeeping before we get underway. Folks, I'm going to be managing the questions. We'll have a Q&A at the end of the presentation, so please put them into the chat window, and we'll have some interactive time at the end of the hour.
Right, and again, if Eric, if any of the chat windows seem relevant to what we're talking about, I would much rather deal with something that's relevant to some specific trader here than just keep the broadcast up. So, as you know, I love being interrupted, I love being challenged, so don't hesitate to do that.
I will certainly interrupt you.
Okay. All right, ready to go. Well, I created this webinar because over the years, I've worked with traders who repeated persistent trading mistakes over and over again. And in working with them, a pattern emerged of how they managed to be so consistent in their losing trades under certain conditions. And it is this pattern and solutions that I want to share with you today. So, I want to start with a story about a tall, skinny philosophy major who walked onto the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. With only the experience of being a futures broker working for Merrill Lynch, that philosophy major was given a badge and put in the middle of the S&P futures pit. He looked around and saw the energy, the billions of dollars whizzing back and forth with just hand signals, and he knew he had found his home. His job was to trade S&P futures to hedge option delta risk. That's right, me, Rich Freezin. My very first time I walked onto a trading floor was not as a clerk learning the trade, but as a trader. I had been hired by Chicago Research and Trading, founded by my college buddy Joe Ritchie. You can read about Joe in the New Markets Wizards book. But for me, it wasn't a quick trip to the bank. My first trainer in the S&P pit said these words, "Rich, you are the worst trainee I have ever had." As I tell the story about myself, I can still hear his voice, as clear as I can hear mine now. Here I was in the heart of billions of dollars of money flowing back and forth, and I was so close, so close. And to hear these words just crushed my hopes and dreams. And this feeling may be familiar to some of you also. But that didn't stop me. For 3 years, I kept notes of everything I noticed, both of myself and other traders. I kept these notes on 3x6 trading cards that I kept in my jacket pocket. You can see them in the yellow circle. I journaled everything of significance. This later turned out into a manual that has turned out into the Mind Muscles for Traders program. In 1987, I started trading my own firm, and I had been trading for several years. It was in the middle of the night in April of 1995 that I awoke with a start. A voice, not mine, said, "Rich, you're only worth $200,000 a year." I heard these words in the middle of the night as clearly as could be. And as I say these words right now, the hair stands up on the back of my neck. So I sat up in bed. It was 3 in the morning. My wife was sleeping peacefully beside me, and nobody else was in the room. So I got up, showered, dressed, and drove to the options floor of the Pacific Stock Exchange in San Francisco. There, I owned a seat as an independent market maker. And when I got there, the doors were still locked, and I sat on the floor and waited. So first, let me give you some background. After successfully trading for a Chicago arbitrage firm, Chicago Research and Trading, I bought my own seat at the Pacific Exchange and went to work for myself. The first year, I was very careful. I didn't have the millions of dollars in capital, and I didn't have all the smart quants behind me. So carefully and cautiously, I made $125,000 the first year. The next year, I cleared $150,000. The third, $175,000. And the following years, I pegged out at $200,000 a year. Well, that was until 1995. And that year, I know, Eric, you mentioned that times the market just hands you money. Well, this was different. I was trading Micron options, and Micron was on an upward tear with exploding option volumes. There were only 4 market makers trading Micron regularly. The profits were pouring in. I couldn't help but make money. By the middle of February, my account was up $200,000. In less than 2 months, I had made as much as I had made normally in a whole year. At the end of February, my account was still at $200,000, and the profit opportunities continued. At the end of March, Micron's volatility was increasing. The stock was going higher, and the option opportunities were growing. But my account was still at $200,000. I'd make 5, lose 3,000, make 4,000, lose 2,000 day after day. And that brings us to April of 1995. For all the opportunity in the pit, my account profits hadn't budged. I was still up only $200,000. And that was when I heard that voice in the middle of the night, "Rich, you're only worth $200,000 a year." As I mentioned, I got to the exchange floor so early, the doors were still locked. And when they opened, I went to the deserted pit and did something I had never done before. I stood in the best spot that would be between the 2 busiest brokers and right in front of the exchange's order book officials. In this spot, I could hear what was going on, and that gave me first crack at orders. You need to understand that, excuse me, on trading floors, nobody owns a spot. It is appropriated by the toughest and most aggressive risk takers. They keep their alpha male spots by staying on top of the social hierarchy with various social pressures. Some command respect, others rule by fear and keep their place as a bully. Boy, could I tell you stories about bullies. The other market makers drifted in. It was a few minutes before the opening bell. No one gave much thought to my new pit position. The guy who always stood there just stood beside me chatting. And when the opening bell went off, he nudged me as he stepped into his spot. I didn't move. It was like a jolt of electricity went through the pit. A pushing match ensued. I pretended I was wearing concrete boots. The order book official quickly warned us to break it up. we could get a $10,000 fine for getting physical, but I remained in my spot. As the bell went off, I became a wild animal. Now, normally, Rich Freezin, philosophy major, stood near the back of the pit, carefully calculated option values, took small bites out of launch orders that seemed over or undervalued. But this time, I bought and sold every series. I was screaming. I can't do it here on the mic, but I would say, buy them, sell them at a quarter, pay 3/8, sell you 50, buy 100. I was waving my hands, writing tickets as fast as I could. The pit thought that Rich Freezin had lost his mind and got berserk. Well, that year I went on to make $650,000, and for years after that. It turned out that I had an internal limiting thermostat set at $200,000. I was fighting my own brain. The voice in the middle of the night represented that limiting belief, and once expressed, I realized it did not apply to me and who I was anymore. So I took the capital, started building an options and equity trading firm. Some of my traders used my magic carpet option trading strategies and started making a lot of money. But a few would make some money and then lose it, back and forth. And more option and strategy training didn't seem to make a difference. And then it occurred to me, what if these challenged traders had their own limiting thermostat like I did? Well, I was fortunate enough that my sister Wendy was a newly minted hypnotherapist and eager to prove herself. And she went and did work with all of the traders. And what happened was that their internal programs were running in their brain that limited their income. For example, out of love and devotion to his dad, a promising trader couldn't make more than his father. I know this seems irrational, and the trader wasn't even aware of this process. Another trader's mom and severely handicapped brother would demand care and support if he became wealthy. And to avoid this conflict, he just didn't make enough money to trigger that tension. A third grew up in West Virginia and came from a long line of poverty. His identity was that of a poor person, and the zeros in his bank account went beyond who he was. The repeated errors they were all making persisted. It wasn't about them not knowing what to do or how to trade, but it was rooted in their identity and beliefs. And this is what this webinar is all about. So the structure of this webinar and all of our lessons are the same: the warm out, the workout, and the win. The warm out is the neuroscience and the intellectual model, and we're going to go into that. The workout is where you actually experience new behaviors. We're going to do some online exercise where you get to experience creating new neural circuits. And in the win section, this is where you expand your behaviors to the real world. So we're going to start with a warm-up, but what we're going to do is first we're going to look at where we are. We're going to recognize our internal states. So here we are. You're going to recognize some of these. Make impulse trades, miss trades, over trading, repeating the same errors. And we seem to have frozen. There we go. Stress, fear of loss, jumping from system to system, not disciplined, feeling stuck, fear of failure, cutting your winners short, lacking confidence, ruled by emotion, afraid to lose money, afraid to pull the trigger, self-sabotage. These are issues that many traders face. And if you can go ahead and type into the chat window, what one of these represents the biggest challenge that you have. And Eric, you can see what's coming up. So type in just one of these with just a word or two. What of these issues seem to really be ones that if you were to resolve would make a big difference in your trading career?
Oh, I think everybody in the room is nodding their heads right now, Rich. We're getting some responses here. A lot of people saying fear of loss, over trading.
Yes.
Afraid to lose money. That's a big one. That one's coming up a lot.
Okay.
Lack of confidence, impulse trading, lack of discipline. Yeah, there's afraid to lose money again. I think that's
it. Okay.
That's the big one. That's the big one in the room, I think, is folks are afraid to take that step of risk and actually try.
And that's part of our primitive brain, because if you lose on the savannas, you lose that hunt for meat, you die. So what happens is that fear is not rational. It doesn't come from our neocortex, our thinking brain. So we're going to talk about dealing with that in a little bit. So now we're going to look at the other side of the ledger. What would you like? And here's what I get. Enjoy the power of discipline, self-mastery, enjoying the challenge, cutting losses, letting profits run, trade with focus and flow, feeling joyful, increasing size, consistently profitable, becoming professional, ending financial worries, managing risks, being calm and relaxed, loving the challenge, the joy of discipline, executing my strategy, financial freedom, self-confidence. Which of these would you really like? Real-time self-awareness, feeling great, persistent, resilience. Let's just get a quick type in the chat box of the ones that would be really important to you. What would feel really good to have as a successful trader?
You know, I think a lot of people don't even realize that those things are possible.
Wow.
We're getting trading with financial freedom, trading with discipline, self-mastery, consistently profitable is a big one. I think that's coming from a lot of the people who wrote Fear of Loss also. A few people here saying they would enjoy the challenge, but yeah, consistently profitable I think is the big one.
Great. So the question then is, how do we get from here to here? Well, I want you to know you're not alone. I need to rearrange something on my screen here. So there we go. Mind Muscles Academy, we've surveyed and tested over 1,000 professional and independent traders, and these traders who are determined to get to their goal of consistent profitability. And the results of these assessment and surveys are consistent with my own experience as a floor trader, my floor trading team, and my professional trading coach clients. The repeated behaviors that cost us big money are rooted in subconscious beliefs that hold us back. So why do most of us traders repeat the same patterns? Well, it turns out we all operate with the same human brain with the systemic limitations. The holy grail of trading is not something you have to look for. It's hiding in plain sight between your ears. It was when I realized that more money could be made by expanding my mental game than building exotic strategies that the Mind Muscles Academy was born. So let's look at ways we can work together and make a difference for you. And the next point I make is the most simple, yet the most critical precept for changing persistent trading errors. Are you ready, Eric?
I'm ready.
You ready for the key?
Drum roll, please.
Okay. You can't get to the goal of consistent profits and keep the same trading behaviors. I want to scream this from the roof. I want you to let this soak in. Because if you understand this point, your path to trading mastery has just become a lot easier. To change your profits, you need to change your trading behaviors, period. If you disagree with this, type into the chat box, and Eric is going to either you raise your hand, we'll hear from you, but this is important because it's so simple, and yet it remains unacknowledged. So I'm going to pause for a moment to see if there's any comments, any disagreement. What are people saying?
We're getting a lot of people agreeing with that comment, Rich. It's funny though, you know, it's one of these things that we all know to be true, and yet we never really give it any thought.
Yes, and that's because it's a hard problem. But damn it, trading is a hard problem. So why don't, if we're going to solve hard problems, why don't we solve the right hard problems?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So if it's the case, then the problem shifts from strategies, indicators, asset classes, time frames, types of derivatives to behavioral change. And now we're working on the right hard problem. Progress will be made, and when we start cooperating with our brain and start understanding how it works so we can solve this problem. Our continual work as traders is consistently building positive new trading behaviors. It won't end. It will never end. You never get to the end. Our goal is to become experts in our internal processes so that we can create better behaviors and create them easily. And if this is our goal, then how does it happen? And this is
Rich,
yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you here just for a moment because this is going to be very foreign to folks because deep down we might agree with what you're saying, but how does that translate into actually going from, tweaking moving averages or playing with this and that oscillator to just fixing your mind, getting a new mindset? Like it seems surreal actually. Like if I can just change my thinking, I'll magically become more profitable? How can that work?
Well, I'm so glad you interrupted me, because what happens typically is we have these neural processes, and we're going to talk about them just in a minute, that are triggered to our survival, triggered to our fears, triggered everywhere. And to actually deal with them, we all put bubbles around them. And the thought of uncovering those bubbles and actually getting down to what's going on becomes an uncomfortable experience. So it's no wonder we don't deal with them. So what we're going to do now in just a minute is we're going to talk about how this works. Okay, any other comments or questions before we go on?
Well, I've got a couple people, like everybody agrees with what you're saying, but I've got a few people saying, yeah, it's simple on the surface, but it's something that's really hard to do.
Aha. And that belief is because, this is perfect for the next slide. That belief is because what we try to do, the traditional advice is to be more disciplined. You know what to do, but it feels so hard to break old habits that no longer serve you. And you repeat the same behaviors. And it's like you shake your finger at yourself. Be more disciplined. And this is a result of building a 2-story nut house in your brain. Most of us, me included, we have this nut house. It comes with how we were raised. The top story is our rational enlightenment. And our neuroscience tells us this comes from our neocortex, our thinking, conscious part of our brain. We know what to do. We have set our goals. We're smart. We're engineers. We're math majors. We back test. We do all these things. We buy the best indicators. We test them. We look at them. We learn. We do all this stuff, and we know what to do. The bottom story of our 2-story nut house is our evil, impulsive desires. These are the ones where we eradicate our stops, where we overtrade, where we don't execute a trade because we're so afraid of loss, and then it turns out to be the best trade ever. So what we try to do is we use the rational, enlightened part of ourselves to try to discipline and to rein in the impulsive desires. But here's the secret. It can never happen because the bottom story of our nut house is connected to our very survival. These are the impulses our brain says, ooh, we're going to survive. I don't care what the neocortex says. And when we drop down into that survival mechanism, we're operating from a different part of our brain, and then we do the things that we wake up the next morning and say, why did I do this? Darn, why did I cancel my stop again? Why did I miss that trade again? We are operating from a different part of our brain. So what we try to do is to overcome it, to use power. But that doesn't work. So what we're going to do is look at how does our brain work? Now, I'm going to go into some detail here, so you have to stay with me. Many studies show that when people understand the processes of synaptic changes in their brain, positive changes happen faster. I'm going to skip over the details on that, but let's just assume that's the case. Do you remember your first attempt at driving? You had to concentrate on everything at once. Now you can drive on a crowded freeway and have a conversation at the same time. Well, how does your brain do this? It turns out that neurons that fire together wire together. Without this feature, our brains would have to invent everything from scratch every time. Every time you started your car, you'd have to learn to drive all over. By repeatedly firing a set of neurons at the same time, complex neural connections are created. And the more these connections are used, the more automated they feel and require less conscious attention. At Mind Muscles, we call those neural metastructures NEMS. Our neural metastructures are short is the short term is NEMS, N-E-M-E-S. We would all be dead. We could not handle complexity without them. But at the same time, some of these no longer serve us, and they're fired with the same rapidity as the NEMS that make life possible. Like, for example, the startle reflex or a reaction to snakes actually come with our brain. Other ones are self-generated that we created when we were dependent and younger, and that we created beliefs and ways to survive. These survival NEMS that we created when we were younger replicate themselves and support beliefs. And these beliefs trigger new behaviors that are no longer useful to us. But because they're so integrated into our neurological fabric, we experience these NEMS not as brain structures, but as indistinguishable from a very valued identity. And the training at Mind Muscles, what we do is we start to experience NEM activity as an optional process. Now, whoops, let's see if I can get this video to play. Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. Is it playing? No, it's not. Going back to the wrong one. There we go, I got it to play. It shows up a little rougher over the internet. But what you're seeing here are neural connections speeded up, neurons making connections and disconnecting. This is neural plasticity in action. Watching this can change the way you live your life. What if creating new behaviors was simply a matter of creating new neural connections? What if getting rid of old behaviors is just about replacing old neural connections with new ones? Now, this gets us out of the two-story nut house, because now what we're doing is we're working with our brain to create new behaviors that work for us and get us to our goals. Wow, okay, we got a half an hour. We're going to whip and drive here. I'm going to shorten this example. When I first started riding my Harley V-Rod, I had NEMS that did not serve me well. For example, I came around a corner, a Mack truck was veering over into my lane. And what did I do? I stared right into that emblem on the radiator. For those of you who ride, you know that a motorcycle tends to go where you're looking. Not a good idea. So what I did for the next 2 months, I practiced while I was riding over and over and again to always look at the safe or the escape route and never at the danger. I repeated this so many times that now even in a car, when there's a danger, my eyes immediately go to the escape route or the safe place to go. Even in stressful situations, the brain can reshape itself. You can build new neural pathways that overcome even ingrained survival neural pathways. It is possible. How many of you would like to be in an airplane with an engine failure and the pilot needs to get the manual out to know what to do? How much better would you feel if he had successfully completed the engine out exercises hundreds of times in a simulator? Well, at first, those engine out exercises felt awkward to the pilot, but now he's on automatic. And this is why we always go back to what is familiar. The creation of new pathways is interpreted as discomfort. But once you understand what's going on, it's like going to the gym to build new muscles. Afterward, you feel fatigued and you feel sore the next day, but you go, yes, I'm building new muscles. So if we understand what it feels like to create new neural connections, and rather than feeling discomfort, we're going, yes, I'm building new behaviors, then we're on the path to overcoming those persistent trading behaviors that are driving us bonkers. So I've been talking a lot here. I'm going to take a drink. And any comments, questions, Eric, or if anybody's raised their hands and wants to comment, I'm open.
Yeah, I've got a couple of people here who have raised their hands. So Mark, first, I'll unmute you, Mark. Did you have any comments that you wanted to share?
I'm sorry, that was a mistake. My apology.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
no
and Mark, while you're here, Mark is in my trading mastermind group. So if you have any comments you would like to add, feel free to do so.
Thanks.
Okay, and we have a hand up here from Sayeda. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Do you have any comments for Rich? No?
Okay.
Nope.
Okay. No problem.
Okay, so now we're going to go to the workout portion. And the workout portion was you actually experience creating new neural pathways. So what I want you to do is to shout out the color of the letters that you see that are going to be on the following slides. And for example, I'll show you an example here. So what color, Eric, do you see? What color are the letters?
Blue.
Blue, right. So now what I'm going to do, we're going to take a minute. We can't, unfortunately, we can't do this for everybody at once. I wished we could. But Eric and I are going to start unmuting people so that we can hear your responses. So Eric, I'm going to start at the bottom of the list. You can start at the top. And we're just going to take about 15 seconds and start unmuting people.
Okay.
And what I'm going to want you to do is every time we have a slide, shout out the color of the letters. Okay? Shout the color of the letters when we have a new slide. So I'm going to unmute a whole bunch of people here so we can hear you, and here we go. Okay. So what is the color of these letters here? Blue. Blue. Faster. I need this really fast. Okay, blue. Red.
Yellow. Green. Blue. Red. Orange. Green. Blue. Red. Blue. Orange. Yellow. Blue. Green. Red. Blue. Red.
Jack Nicholson.
Okay, I just muted everybody. So what you could see happening here was that our brain is trained to read the word. And you could hear in a group, this is really a lot of fun because you can just see people just struggling to overcome an old need. That is that we've been trained to read the words and to actually look at the color and say the color means we're interrupting a NEM, a neural metastructure in our brain. And you can see what it feels like. And so what we do at the Mind Muscles Academy is we look at the processes that you have going that no longer serve you and see how we can interrupt them. And that is, and so once you understand what it feels like and what you're doing, it entirely changes the process from the two-story nut house to actually working with your brain and working about how it works.
First time I did that, my head hurt. So if anybody's head is hurting, I can sympathize.
Well, that's a really good point. Like when you go to the gym, you feel fatigued afterwards. But if you know you're building new mind muscles, you can do it. For example, if your head hurts and you didn't understand the positive contribution this was making to changing your behavior, you would never do it again. So what we do is we encourage you by showing you how this is a positive contribution to your trading. Okay, hold on just a second. Need to change my laptop here. There we go. Okay. So next we're going to look at creating new mind muscles. So we learn to interrupt them. So what I want everybody to do, if it's handy, get out a pencil and paper or pen and paper. We're going to do a little bit of writing with your hand. And no, typing on the keyboard does not help. Although we could do it. I just realized I could do a keyboard version of this. I know how to do it. Oh, for next time. Okay. So, and if you don't have a pen and paper handy, no worry. Just use your finger and pretend it's a pen and that you're writing on your desktop. So what I want you to do is to write the words making mind muscles. Making mind muscles. But I want you to do it with your wrong hand. So if you're left-handed, you're going to move your pen to your right hand. If you're right-handed, I want you to move it to your left hand, which most of you will be doing. So write making mind muscles with a hand that you normally do not write on.
I don't know how you do it, Rich. I know you're a lefty.
I'm a lefty. It's easy, but I have to shift to the right hand. And if you look up at the video, you'll see new neural connections being made, and that's what you're doing. You are now creating new neural connections by very conscious, focused behavior. And if you have any comment about how this feels to write with the wrong hand, you can type it into the chat box. Okay, anything coming in, Eric?
Yeah, a lot of people are saying it feels totally unnatural and awkward. It forces me to think about what I'm doing, feels weird and difficult and very frustrating. A few people commenting on how frustrating it is.
Okay, this is so good. I'm so glad we got those comments because we are talking about creating new neural circuits, new neural connections. You can see them being made in the video right now on a very simple example where there's no emotionality involved in it. It's not like your value as a person is connected to this at all. Nobody's judging you. Now imagine creating new neural circuits on something that is more complex. You have a lot of environmental issues and whatever. But if you have the same experience, how this is frustrating and all that stuff, you aren't going to do it. But if you know that creating new behaviors is this is how it feels, you're more likely to continue through. So those persistent trading errors and fixing them is going to have a similar feel. And if you were to write with your wrong hand, where after a couple of months, it would become easier because you had created new neural circuits. And the same thing holds true for trading. After you trade for a couple of months with your new behaviors, it's going to become a lot easier. So I'll stop for a moment. Questions or comments?
A few people commenting about the exercise, how it just felt so unnatural. A few people saying who have young children, I can sympathize with my 4-year-old trying to write.
Good.
Yeah, because actually that's, children, they go through the same stage, don't they, when they're trying to learn how to write. They're needing to build those neural circuits and be able to make their body do what their mind wants them to do.
And if you look at a child, they are so eager to do that because they do not have the negative association with creating new neural circuits. I've got a 2-year-old grandson, and I just love to watch him play and try things and drop things and tilt them and pour and gather sand. You can just see his brain is creating thousands or trillions of new neural circuits almost daily. And it's a joy for him to do it. If you try to stop him, then he's in pain. But as we grow older, creating new neural circuits is experienced as discomfort. And we like the familiar. So what we're going to do is, if you want to change your behaviors, and if you know how to create new neural circuits, then it becomes a lot easier. Okay, other questions or comments?
We've got a comment here. It gets easier every time I do it, but how do I eliminate the old behaviors? They seem to get triggered so often again.
That is the perfect comment for the next slide. So at the top you have the current behaviors. You have a desired outcome. You discipline yourself to the new behaviors. And the survival takes over. The NEM is triggered, the old neural metastructures. You go into fight or flight. The amygdala part of our brain and our limbic system catches on. Or we interpret it as discomfort. We then avoid it. We repeat the old behaviors. We then look at ourselves. We have a loss of self-worth, and we feel like we're failures. So the mind muscles intervention point is before that NEM is triggered, so that we can experience that intensity as positive, as pleasure. It gives us a feeling of pride. I need to move something here. We have confidence in the outcome. We have persistence. We get rewarded. Our current behaviors change. We create new desired outcomes. But this time we don't discipline ourselves to new behaviors, but we enjoy the experience and the intensity of the new experience. Okay, I have so much to say. We're running short of time, so I'm going to speed it up here a bit. We'll start by giving exercises to increase your awareness. Awareness of our internal state is fundamental to creating behavioral change. Another point I want to make is that change happens only when behaviors that feel better in the moment. I'm working with a client with a persistent trading problem, and I give them an exercise. And after the exercise, they'll pause and they'll say, "Oh, that feels better." Then I know we're on the first step to lasting change. People do not choose new behaviors that feel worse. Even the current behaviors that have crummy outcomes were chosen at some point because they were better than the previous behaviors. So our job is to create simulations and exercises that feel better so that you can make those changes. Okay, any questions, Eric, or comments so far?
No new questions right now.
Okay, my voice is giving out here. I've gotten too excited. So here's what we do with persistent behaviors that no longer serve. You've done the exercises, the awareness exercises. You've had a wonderful experience of creating new mind muscles, but you still get triggered by trading losses or other events, excuse me, and then repeat the same trading behaviors that consistently lose money. I'm going to give this to you for a minute, Eric, while I clear my throat.
Yeah, no problem, Rich. I've done enough webinars. I know exactly where you're at. But yes, it's so true. You know, we get into those habits, and old habits, they die hard, just as the cliche says it does. Danny says, you're a wizard. I was just eating junk food.
Okay, we'll go to that slide.
Yeah, you know, we all want to change, and it's funny, we're coming up on another year, right? So there's going to be all these New Year's resolutions. Right. We want to make these changes, and yet it is so hard for people to change.
Right. Well, that's a perfect comment for the next slide. These mistakes become traditions. They become neural metastructures. So let's look at the issues around persistent change. In this model of change, I've created 5 levels in order of mass and energy. The bottom is the easiest to change. The top is the last. The first is knowledge, just learning about the markets and trading. Skills, where we take our knowledge to the world, such as learning a trading application or market setups. Behaviors, this is how we act with our patterned responses. Beliefs, this is the foundation of how we filter, compress, distort the information we have to support the beliefs to keep us safe. And our identity, how we fundamentally see ourselves. Now this is dangerous territory, financially, emotionally, and even physically. Nobody in a human being wants to wake up in the morning and be somebody else. Well, maybe I want to be Batman. But
that means I'm Robin.
What?
Then I'm Robin.
Okay, good. We'll be Batman and Robin. But the thought of shifting our identities without our control is pretty scary. And if you want to experience this directly, go to a biker bar and challenge the big tough guy's identity, and you will experience this, this pyramid. So to look at it from another framework, the time and intensity that it takes and the dedication that it takes increase as we go from knowledge to identity. But what if we have behaviors that repeat themselves over and over again? You know, we know what to do, we understand the triggers, but we still trade impulsively. So those repeaters are repeated, and they're repeating themselves slowly. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. The more our psychological needs are filled by trading, the more our emotional state will affect our P&L. What this means, like for example, I was coaching a trader, not in the U.S., offshore, and his very worth as a human being was invested in his trading. He had fought his family to trade. He had told everyone how good he was going to be. His wife had given up all their savings to trade. Everything. His value as a human being was tied up in his trading success. So what happens when you think he has 2 or 3 losing trades in a row? He is not able to trade his system. Amazing as it seems, 80% of all traders I coach, when they have a persistent trading response, it'll come to beliefs about the world that were created when they were younger. This applies to billion-dollar hedge fund managers as well as newbie day traders. I didn't believe this myself 10 years ago until I kept meeting the same issue over and over again. So, how do we avoid the triggers of revenge, boredom, compulsion to trade, impulse trading, greed, and fear in our trading? When I work with traders as a coach, here's a typical path that I use. I need to move a window here. We understand what the present state is. We clarify the desired state. We find out what stops them. We locate a physical sensation. We determine the sensation's origin, which often takes us back to a younger person and when they made some beliefs or made some needs that were there for survival. We reframe that process and give them additional sources. We grow them back up, and we bring their current new framework to their stuck position. So we go through that process. And if you want to do this on your own without spending any money, it's challenging because you don't have anybody there to guide you. But for those of you who are self-motivated, you just pick a small behavioral change. It says here that will have the most impact, but my advice after looking at this would be to pick something small. You know, maybe picking your nose. Break it down into tiny steps and find a safe way to practice each step in simulation and just feel the satisfaction that each step creates. Repeat this over and over again, just like I repeated looking for the escape route on my motorcycle. And then put it all together and you can go live. So that's what you can do for yourself. And part of these webinars, I want to give you guys value for just being here.
Rich, let me interject a question which I think is relevant to what you're talking about. Simon asks, I'm just wondering, how would you overcome the problem of operant conditioning if a behavior results in a positive outcome that for whatever reason no longer results in the same positive results? Right. What then? Do you stick with it? You are talking a lot about persistent change. Are you saying change should be a dynamic, evolving process that adapts to changing markets?
Wow, there's about 3 or 4 questions there. They're all incredibly wonderful questions. One, and he's absolutely right, that if you have a behavior that has a positive outcome, and we could even go to a behavior like the soldiers in World War II storming the Normandy beach and getting out of those landing crafts, most of them realized that they were going to die. And they still chose to get off that landing craft and storm the beach. Why? Because in that moment, it felt better than staying on the landing ship and letting down their fellow soldiers who were depending on them. So we always choose those, make those choices of behaviors that feel better. And if we have a persistent behavior that in the past has had a positive outcome for us, so for example, when we were younger and no longer does, then what we're looking to do is to have an experience of another behavior that feels better in the moment. It can't be, well, it'll feel better when I get it done. Well, if I had done it yesterday, but just feel better in the moment. And that's where change happens. And there were a lot of other questions in there, but we'll move on from there, and maybe we can get to the rest of them later. Okay. So what I want to introduce is the Mind Muscles for Traders Bootcamp, and our motto is no trader left behind. And during the 3 months of the course, we work on the right problem that leads to better outcomes. And maybe this is addressing what I think Simon says. How do we get to better outcomes? And the purpose of the bootcamp is to give you an environment where you can overcome old trading reactions and replace them with new profitable behaviors. We do this by giving you simulations that interrupt old needs, as you have experienced, and allowing you to build new mind muscles. The experience for you, this experience is for you if you're interested in improving your own trading resilience by taking responsibility for creating new behaviors. This is not for the weak of heart. What we do, for example, is you score yourself weekly on your progress as you lose your old reactions and build new mind muscles. You can see where these charts go from red to yellow to green. We have a long list of things that we can measure. We also measure all your trading metrics, and you'll be in a supportive group that helps you create fresh confidence in your trading. And our metrics will be posted, and you'll get the support you need. And we don't let you get away with anything. We don't let you repeat your old behaviors and keep posting lousy results. And we do this in a number of ways. And if you need extra support for breaking bad trading responses, we have a mirror-to-peer program. And what this does is it allows you to be put into an environment while you're trading live to create more awareness and to get in between the impulse and the reaction. So what we do is we create a new behavior trading live. And we do this with a mirror-to-peer by pairing people up, by traders up, and one trader acts as the mirror and the other the peer, which is the trader. And during this, the questions that the mirror asks, it's not a two-way discussions, and the questions are strictly limited. And we ask this as a way to create awareness. So we have a pre-opening sessions, and here's some example questions. Did you complete your previous session's closing routine? Did you complete your opening ritual or checklist? And this, there's no right or wrong answer. You can say yes or no, but at least you are now in awareness. I'm an old pilot, and we used to have checklists. And I can tell you the one time I got into trouble was the time that I did not follow my checklist. And so what we're doing is we're taking what successful astronauts and pilots do, is we're taking this. In fact, I listened to a presentation by a Blue Angels trainer, and we talked about checklists, and we're going to bring a lot of that same discipline, not discipline in the sense you do what you should do, but the pleasure of following a discipline that actually works and gets you to your goals. So we have a lot of questions we ask. They take about 5 minutes. And we ask about what your intentions are during the day. We ask you about moods and strategies. Now, this is something that some of you are familiar with, how we deal with market moods. And this is a whole section on market moods and strategies. But we ask you, what are your expectations for moods and strategies? And then we ask you about your set score. And this is your sensations, your emotions, your thoughts, S-E-T. And we score these on a -5 to +5. And we ask you where you are. One of our traders in my mastermind trading group used this to determine how much he traded, because what he discovered was when his scores went below 1 or 2, his P&L went down. He could, it was a mirror. His set scores mirrored his trading profitability. So if we know that your own state of mind is important to trading, let's measure it, let's get metrics, and let's create awareness. We also create break states that allow us to get out of our just responsive behaviors, and we get feedback. And the mirror makes observations over Skype and watching all these things to help you increase your awareness. We have a mid-session that does similar things. We have a wrap-up. We get mirror feedback. And this is part, this is in, I should say, this is in alpha testing. We've gone through it internally with our own traders, and now we're going to offer it for the first time to our Bootcamp. And this brings us to the Bootcamp. But before we go on, any comments or questions, Eric?
No, you've got everybody, I think, on the edge of their seat. It's great stuff, Rich. I know, we're all kind of in the same boat, or we feel like we're in the same boat, where you have that sensation that your trades define who you are as a person. Yes. And if you can do well, then you feel better about yourself. But yes, really, the two aren't related.
It turns out that your worthiness as a person is independent of your trading results. But who knew?
It's a big pill to swallow.
It is. I know that I continually look at one of the big failures in my life, and it still chews at my belief about my own worthiness. So it's not minor. So we just keep working on it. We just keep improving it day after day after day. Okay, so Mind Muscles for Bootcamp. This is going to open in January. It's limited to 20 traders. We want people to have at least 1 year of experience trading, be willing to self-examine who you are. You need to be actively trading a sim or actual account. You need to be willing to support other traders, because this is going to be a group that is not just a one-way lecture about issues, but it's actual experiences with other traders. So if you like supporting other people and you want to be trained as a mentor, we're going to be training mentors for this program that can go on and do other things with us. And to get into this program, what I want to do is interview everyone myself. There's no way you can buy this on the internet. But what I want to do is talk to everyone and to see what can I do for you that's the best, because we have so many other ways for you to get to your goals. I want to make sure that this is one that works for you and not have, and everybody that's there really working together, supporting each other, moving forward, and creating new mind muscles and new trading behaviors that get there. So I'm going to leave this slide up, and you can put, Eric, you can put that URL into the chat box. And this is a resource page. And this resource page has free Mind Muscles training. It has an application for a boot camp. It has a self-guided course called Mind Muscles for Traders Explorers. It talks about the peer-to-peer experience that we talked about a little bit in more detail. It gives you our webinar support sponsors and the free support that they give you. And if you want to get on our VIP access list, if you didn't sign up for the email and didn't click on that, yes, you can send the emails link. There's another chance to do it there. So what I'm hoping for all of you is to be able to get to the root of what your persistent trading errors are, give you the support in whatever form we can, even if it's just looking at our free lessons, but do what we need to do to give you what you need to get to consistent profitability. And that's what we really want to do, because that's where we want to be, consistently profitable traders, whether it's professionally or independent. So I'm now available for 30 minutes for questions, for comments, for issues. I'm willing to stay here as long as anybody wants to talk. So what we can do is to open the mics as you raise your hand, or if you want to type in the chat box, Eric can tell me what you want. So I'm open to talking about trading issues or about our programs or anything else that you feel would be supportive of your trading.
And you know what, folks, I can tell you from firsthand experience that Rich is very genuine about his offer here. When he says he wants to make you a better trader, he is not yanking your chain. Like, I know Rich well enough to say that your success really is very important to him. And this is a fantastic opportunity. Ed is asking, what kind of computer equipment is needed? Do people need anything special in order to participate in your program?
Nope, just any computer connected to the internet. It's all fairly low computing intensive, so that is not an issue at all. You could even do it from a low-end laptop.
Terrific. Okay, as people are, here's a question from Brenda. She asked, do you give instruction on trading strategies? Do you get into the strategies of trading at all?
Well, I think more importantly, first we get into, in the market moods, we talk about what is the role of strategies? What is the role of the traders applying strategies to the right market moods? And we have a whole training section on that. But as far as specific strategies, no, we don't. We're about your state of mind and applying them. And we'll help you with the processes of what it takes to develop your strategy. But, in the session we had before the webinar opened and some people had questions, we talked about somebody who was just in trading rooms and following gurus and was unable to develop their own trading. Well, we talked about trading is a very independent process in the end. So what we do is we give you the tools and the state of mind, and we support that so that you can develop your strategies that work for you.
And if I can just make a little observation here too, I know, you know, it's so easy to get caught up in the mindset that a lot of people have that, you know, if I can only find this next best thing, you know, if I can only tweak my moving averages correctly, or if I can only get a hold of such and such an oscillator and optimize the settings, I'll never have another losing trade. I have some bad news, folks. You will always have a losing trade, and it's how you deal with those losing trades really that is going to, well, make or break you as a trader. Like Rich, I'm sure you have loads of stories too. Not all your trades were money makers.
Right. Well, when in the lesson on loss, we move the value of a trade from its whether it won or lost to whether it was executed. And we call these lucrative trades, whether they made money or not. And also on strategies, I want to point out that on the resource page, one of our sponsors is Indicator Warehouse, and they work very closely with me in terms of developing strategies that work with different market moods. And I know that you, Eric, have some resources there for people. So go to the resource page and you can see other people that I support that are honest, who have integrity, who can help you out.
Thanks for that, Rich. A couple questions about the Bootcamp specifics. People are interested in the cost of the Bootcamp. What time of day will the Bootcamp be held if they want to participate in it? Where can they get those types of specifics? On
the resource page, we give a lot more details about the Bootcamp, and the scheduling depends on how many overseas people we have and what time zone, and typically about half our clients are international. So we can take a look at that and adjust it, and also if there's enough people, we can look to create 2 different sessions, because I really like the live interactions, the live coaching sections, and that's really important to me. So we'll do whatever we can to make that work. Of course, they are all recorded, and so even if you have an odd schedule, you can always listen to the recordings. The cost is not for traders. If we look at the value, that's not even an issue. I don't discuss that until I've talked with you and to make sure that this is something that is going to be of value to you, because I don't want people just to spend money, you know, on the next shiny object. I want to work with you to make sure that I can provide real value to get you to your goals.
A question here. I've heard that it helps to think of trading like flipping a coin. We need to realize that only a percentage of our trades will be successful. What do you think of that?
Well, not only do I think that's great, but it's an exercise that we have. One of the exercises is that it's a coin flip exercise where you take real money out of the bank, real money, to make it as real as possible. We give you a slight edge in flipping the coin, so you know in the long run you're going to make money. But what most people don't realize is, in fact, I can, when I have a live presentation, I'll sometimes show that I can tell the difference between a random flip of the coin and people's writing random flips of the coin. I can tell them every time because, and I shouldn't give this away, but a random flip of the coin will have longer strings of heads and tails. When people write what they think is random, there will be, you know, heads, heads, tails, tails, heads, heads, tails, heads, tails, you know, like that. But a random flip will go heads, 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 tails, 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 heads, 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 heads. You know, you'll have these. And what people, this gets into strategies well, I could just talk about this forever. But when we are in a marketplace, we got to realize that even if we have 3 losing trades in a row, sometimes it has nothing to do with our strategies, our market moods, or awareness. That sometimes randomness in there will just, you know, clean us out, and and not to take that personally.
Yeah, because especially I know from people that I've worked with, and from my own point of view also, if I've had a string of losers or even a string of winners, all of a sudden I find myself hesitant and trading from a place of fear. And that's not really where I want to be trading from.
Well, that's really a good point. What happens is our brain shifts down to our limbic system. We plug into fight or flight. We plug into old memes, and we're actually trading from a different brain. And we wake up the next morning with our neocortex intact, and we look at what we did, and we say, as a floor trader, I could use some very colorful words, which I will avoid. We say, oh, shoot. and we wonder how that happened.
Question here from folks, a few more specifics about the boot camp. How long is the training period? Is it a period of weeks or months?
It's 3 months, and there's a lot of activity you'll be doing, a lot of interactive exercises. There's online lessons. There's live coaching. There's the peer-to-peer program. So this is a full-featured and very busy 3 months. And what I'm looking to do is to plug all the holes where people normally fall out of training and go back to bad experiences. So if you're at all interested, on the resource page is a way that you can make an application. You can, we'll have an interview, and once we have the interview, we can determine what is really best for you. And for some people, I can point to other things that may be far better for them. So this is not a sales pitch. This is just a conversation to determine what is best for you. So if you're all interested, please register for the free interview, and let's discover how I can support you to getting to consistent profits.
Oh my gosh, folks, I cannot tell you what an outstanding offer that is. Like, I know Rich likes to talk, but really to be able to bend his ear for 20 minutes or half an hour, that is very valuable stuff. So you should definitely take advantage of that.
Excellent.
Okay, just checking a few questions here. How do you register? Davis, I put the link in the chat window. Let me paste it there again. You can also follow the link here on that last slide. That will get you to the registration page where you can get some more particulars about the boot camp.
Yep. It'll take you to a resource page that has a number of things, including free training and access to the boot camp. Now remember, you can't register for the boot camp. You can only apply and create an interview with me. So again, it's limited to 20 people, and I only want those. Well, I want to give this opportunity to the people who are ready to really benefit, who are supportive of other traders and can really make a contribution. And out of it, I'm looking to create a number of mentors who can help with Mind Muscle Academy, taking on younger or more inexperienced traders in time. So I really want to be sure that this is right for you and that you're very eager to join and work with us.
Fantastic. Here's a question. Is it really possible to trade without fear?
That's a really tough question because it depends on how we define fear. And, one of the things I always say, a number of trader trainings say you have to suppress your emotions. You have to trade without emotions. You have to be disciplined. Well, rather, I say, well, let's just be aware of it. I now notice I'm afraid. I notice I'm afraid the next trade will be a loss. My PET score, my set score rather, my sensations, emotions, thoughts are negative. I'm not going to trade right now. So the goal is not to trade without fear, but the goal is to be aware of it. And then there's certain fears that, we created when we were younger. I've gone with traders back to a point where they were beaten senseless by their father. And that created a real stubborn, angry experience in them that they just had to bottle up so that they didn't get beaten again. And now as traders, what happens is they can't stay with a trend. And we go back, and it connects to that same stubbornness. So, can you trade without fear? Well, the brain is remarkably neuroplasticity. You saw the neurons connecting and disconnecting. We can be aware of it, and we can create new mind muscles. But we can't trade without emotions at all, because the emotional center of the brain is where we make our decisions. So in brains where the emotional centers have been damaged or they disable them, turns out we can't decide between vanilla and chocolate ice cream.
So it's like you're saying we have these self-fulfilling prophecies about ourselves, and if we need to change our self-image in order to get from where we are to where we want to be.
If our self-image is self-destructive and not reflective of the beautiful, wonderful people we are inside, then we need to look at that self-image. We know that it was created at one point to help us survive very difficult circumstances. But now as an adult, we can look at a self-image that is more enlightened, more positive, more free, more loving, and more wonderful.
I've got, Martin's got his hand up here, so let me unmute Martin. Martin, did you have a question for Rich? Oh, maybe not.
Okay.
Okay, I'll mute you again, Martin. If you do have a question, please click the raise your hand again, and I can unmute you, or type it into the chat window. And let me see here, a question: how do people come down to reality after a string of great winners? I have great days followed by terrible days. Where can I come down from where I can't come down from a high?
Well, that is an awesome question, because the typical pattern of especially newer traders is make money, make money, make, lose it all in a day or two. Make it, lose it all. And what happens is that, in fact, this is a big part of the lesson on loss, is that as we make it, hubris or overconfidence sets in. And all the dreams that we had, if you can imagine a trader who was not accepted or loved by his dad, didn't bond well with his mom, didn't do well in school, was rejected in love by the woman he loved dearly. And for trading, this means if he's successful, that means people are going to love him, accept him, he's going to get laid more often, women are going to fall all over him, or if you're a woman, men, you know, it's just all these dreams that are going to fill that empty spot in his or her life. And imagine what happens when you have a loss and that dream ends. So we get confident when we make losses and we believe that dream is going to be fulfilled. And the first downtick just triggers all this fear. And boom, we go into a different part of our brain, and then we just lose the money rapidly. And this pattern I see repeated over and over again. In fact, in the application for the Bootcamp, you will be asked which of the patterns your trading follows, and that is one of them that most of the traders acknowledge.
You know, Rich, you really touched on an important point. I do some coaching as well, and there was a fellow I was dealing with, and he was looking at a signal. We were looking at the markets live, and he said, well, should I take this trade? And I said, well, you know, I can't tell you to take a trade, but all the trade parameters are there. He took the trade, and it went a tick in his favor, and he, oh great, everything's working out. It goes a tick in his favor. And I could hear him cursing himself under his breath and muttering, and then it went a tick in his favor again, and everything was good, and it went a couple of ticks against him. And he finally got stopped out, and he got stopped out for, you know, it wasn't a huge loss. It was like a couple $100. You'd think that he just bankrupted himself. It's like, this is part of the game. You know, this is what we do as traders.
Yes. I had a trader that when he was short, he would sometimes tap the top of his screen as though that would kind of jiggle the market to go down by gravity.
I think you're telling tales on mic. I usually tickle it with my mouse. Sometimes
oh, good.
With my mouse. Okay, I'm going to try Martin again here. Martin said that he's got a comment that he wants to share.
Okay.
Just one second, Martin, while I find you. Okay, how about now, Martin?
Okay, can you now hear me, everybody?
Yes.
Yes, can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, Martin.
Excellent. Sorry for earlier. Somehow my settings were not right. I just wanted to comment, no question. Rich, thank you very much for this great webinar. I was actually part of the first series of work that you did a year ago, where you did the testing of the courses and everything, and I was part of that, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm still participating in the webinars every now and then. So thank you very much for that. And I just wanted to comment on a few things. I have been trading myself for a long time. It's more than 11 years now. I have done it professionally as well. And I was sometimes successful, sometimes not so much. And I just wanted to say that everybody who is in this webinar right now, if you have reached the point, maybe with your help, Rich, that where you realize that it's your behavior and it's your state of mind that drives the results in the end. It's not a moving average. It's not a different strategy. I mean, obviously, your strategy needs to be able to make money, obviously. But apart from that, the mind is the one thing that makes the big difference in trading. And what I personally do is maybe this can be helpful in order to have the awareness that I need to see what I'm doing and whether I'm doing the right things or I'm doing the wrong things. I do meditation personally. I really try to calm myself down before trading, after trading, with the goal basically to really bring my ego down, to understand that I need to be extremely humble in front of the market. The market moves up or down, right? No matter whether I trade or not. So in the end, it's a real mind game, and I have participated in many webinars and in many different things, and I read tons of books. Started with the Market Wizards that you mentioned in the beginning of your webinars, and all the other books, and I come down to the simple thing that you need to control your state of mind, and what you offer is a very unique perspective. The idea of making mind muscles is excellent. It's so simple and it's so clear and to the point. So I just wanted to say thank you and just really tell you that after all these years of having done good trades and bad trades and being bitch slapped by the market all the time, because it never stops, right? You do wrong trades all the time. It never stops, and then everybody who thinks that there's a time where you do everything right, this won't come. You will get better all the time, and you will. It's hard work, right? Just like anything else where you want to become good at. Trading is really hard work, and this is why I also believe that trading is not really for everybody. People think trading is easy money, and every couple of days you do a few clicks and you get rich, but that's not the case. It's hard. It's hard work, and people sometimes are not really willing to put in the time. And sorry that I'm talking too much, but
that's okay.
Long story short, thank you very much. It's really a mind game in the end, and the sooner a trader who starts or who has been trading already, the sooner you understand that, the better it is, and the quicker you are on the right track.
Well, thank you so much for those comments. And and when you say that trading is hard work, what I would like to do is frame that out by saying, if you are looking at improving your own behaviors, that at first it feels awkward, it feels uncomfortable, just like writing with your wrong hand. But here's the cool thing, that as you get better and better and creating more new behaviors, it becomes easier and easier. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you look at people who are really successful and it looks so easy to them, that's because they're, what you said, Martin, was really important, that it never ends, that they're continually looking for ways to improve their responses and behaviors. So if we're concentrating on that hard work becomes easier and easier. And I so appreciate your comments, because you have been here from early on, and you were one of the first guys who helped plow through the program and make improvements to it, so I really appreciate that.
How would you compare traders, successful traders, to athletes, Richard? Do you see a lot of commonality there?
Well, certainly there's a lot of athletes that have gone into trading, and if you look at, like I was looking at the Olympics some time ago, and there was a woman at the top of a ski slope, and she was moving her body, and just, you could see the eyeballs moving under her eyelids that were closed, and the look on her face and going up and down, and you could see she was rehearsing this whole thing, going through the experience, getting it into new mind muscles. And I think that there is a lot of similarity between that. In fact, in the lesson, see, I'm trying to remember which lesson it was. I think it's the Winning Minds lesson. We use a lot of sports analogies to put you in a sports situation, so that, like in baseball, where if you're batting .350, you're doing really well. Well, it turns out you're missing at .650. So put yourself into that situation and to reframe losing trades. So I think the sports analogies work really well in a whole bunch of areas. So yes, thank you for that comment.
Just one more question here. I know Michael's already given Sterling his input, but he might like your input as well. Do you think that a trader should just follow their rules like a robot, or should your trading be more intuitive?
There are engineers I know that swear they don't have or never have had a feeling in their body. They are all math. There are other people I know, and in fact, on our trading advisory team, that have traded for so long that their brain is able to see patterns that they couldn't consciously even be aware of, and they don't even know why they're making the trade. But there's a very big difference between that powerful pattern recognition part of our brain and depending on it to see things that we consciously can't, and trading intuitively in the sense of impulsive trading. Say, oh, I'm trading intuitively, when it's really just connected to an emotional state and not to that pattern recognition powerful machine we have between our ears.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So no easy answer to that one. It really depends on who you are and your experience.
Well, I think that's a big part of trading too, isn't it? It's identifying who you are as a trader, because like you said early on, there's a lot of guru types. A lot of people try to follow their footsteps, but if you don't have the mindset of a scalper, or if you don't have the ability to handle the risk like a long-term trader, there's no point in me trying to teach you how to do that if that's not you.
Well, that's really good, that we need to find out your strengths, and that's one of the things that we do. So let's take one more issue or question, and then we're going to wrap it up for the day.
All right, I see Linda has her hand up, so Linda, go ahead. You have a question for Richard? Oh, maybe not.
Linda? Okay, well, I would like to encourage you to visit our resource page, look at our sponsors, of which Eric is one of them. These are all top-rated people who I have vetted myself and feel very confident in their experience and what they're offering. I'll take a look at the Mirror-to-Peer experience to see if that is of value to you. We have a self-guided traders a course called Explore. We have the Bootcamp, which is the intensive, and we also have a lot of free stuff on there. So I'd encourage you to go there, sign up for our VIP list if you haven't, and I really appreciate each and every one of you who joined us today. The questions were great. My heart goes out to each one of you, and remember that Mind Muscles Academy and I, Rich Freezin, we're here to support you on your goal, in your own way, on your own path to becoming consistently profitable.
All right, no more questions?
Okay.
All right, well, that's terrific, Rich. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us this afternoon. I hope that you're taking something of value away from this last hour, hour and a half presentation. And thank you, Rich, for sharing all that terrific information and for making yourself so available to us.
I love it. And Eric, I just really enjoy working with you. And our dance together was especially delightful this time, and really appreciate your help.
It's always fun, Rich. Glad to do it. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.